Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here today to talk to you about a dilemma I had, a problem that faced me years ago when I started practicing medicine. I used to be an emergency medicine physician, and for any young physician, this was the most challenging, most exciting job. I had to deal with very intensive cases: gunshot wounds, stab wounds, near-drowning accidents, scuba diving accidents, heart attacks. I thought I could handle anything. You name it, I've seen it. I got it. I could handle it. Handling such cases, I thought I could, compared to that, anything else is trivial, is small. I was very mistaken. I had to deal with other issues that might seem trivial at that time to me, but not to the patients that had them. I had to deal with women with headaches that used to come to me complaining of those horrible headaches. They've been on medication for migraine for years and years and years. They could hardly take care of their kids, their families, their job. They could hardly sleep properly. They started to be snappy. They started to get depressed. I had other men coming to me complaining that they are being offered jobs, but because of their lower back pain, they started to decline such a job, if the job entailed that you have to travel a lot, for example. I had to do something about that. I felt helpless. I had to change this. And I kept hearing about this new specialty to me at the time, called chiropractic. And I heard from patients that came to me, to the office, and said, doc, I was in, let's say, Chicago, and I had a horrible back pain. I couldn't do anything, and they took me to this physician, this chiropractor. And I went in, crawling in his office. He did something, and I came out fine. It's like nothing ever happened. He got those magic hands. I got hung up on that, the magic hands. But on the other hand, I heard other people saying, those quacks, they crack your neck, you end up with a stroke. That was too dramatic, too conflicting. I had to find the truth. I had to find it, and the urge was so strong enough that I had to change what I was doing. I decided to pursue that, and I did. I went back to school. It took me 4 years to finish that. Let me talk to you about this chiropractic. Chiro means hands in Latin. Practic means done by hand, practiced by hand. The story starts in the year 1895 with a practitioner called Didi Palmer. One time he was going into the building where he had his practice, and a gentleman that worked there complained to him that while he was lifting something and turning, something popped. And right after that, he lost hearing with one of his ears. So Didi Palmer examined him, thought he felt something unusual in the neck. So he went and pushed on it, and it cracked. And suddenly this gentleman regained his hearing. That was very intriguing to Didi Palmer, and it started a thought process and started a new profession. It developed from a very simple form or a very simple theory of bone out of place, bone pressing on nerves, that it affects the function of the bodies, to the more sophisticated form that we have it today under the name of neuromusculoskeletal, nerve, muscles, tendons, skeleton, which is joints, ligaments, tendons. Today we have great institutes like the American Chiropractic Association, the World Chiropractic Association, the North American Spine Society, very prestigious, very heavy institutes with a lot of evidence-based medicine behind it. Lots of techniques are being used in that field, mostly focused on the spine. It starts, or it goes from the very simple way, the way people know it, that if you ask anybody, do you know anything about chiropractic, they would say, yeah, those guys that crack bones. We don't really crack bones. What we do, or the simplest form of what we do, is actually we affect the joints. we basically deliver high velocity, low impact thrusts over the spine. We realized that by doing that, we can actually influence the capsules around the joints in between the vertebrae, where I could easily start developing a nerve series of stimulation that actually affects the human body in a very different way. A gentleman by the name of Carrick, a great physician, discovered that we can actually affect your brain perception of pain. Pain is an experience, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a sensation. When you get a bruise or a bump, your brain perceives this feeling, this obnoxious feeling, and thinks about it and says, oh, should I cry? Should I be worried? Should I just ignore it? That's how we perceive pain. So we realized we can actually affect that by doing those simple moves that we can do. A great professor, Professor Jim Cox, developed another technique where he realized that by just affecting the joints, intervertebral joints between the vertebra, we can actually increase the pressure, decrease the pressure within the disc. So the disc that is bulging in people with disc herniations can actually be reduced. Not just that, we increased this space by about 28%. That's dramatic. We could also approximate the edges of that disc herniation so the disc can heal. And by doing so, it imbibes fluid and pushes one vertebra above and the other one below, just enlarging the space for those nerves. We realized we can actually affect your posture. Haven't you noticed when you talk to colleagues, sometimes you're standing in a circle or you're talking with someone with you at the office, that they're basically standing with their head tilted this way and having a very intelligent conversation with you, not realizing what they're doing. What they don't know is that half of their brain thinks they're actually shifted the other way around. So it's trying to bring you to the opposite side while your eyes are trying to correct that. We found out that we can properly change that. Why do we want to change it? Because if you're standing this way, I have my spine twisted. I have an S-shaped spine. I have my pelvis a bit twisted backwards. So by correcting that with a simple move, stimulating the other half of the brain to bring you back to the original position, we can help you fix your posture. Why do we want to fix your posture? Because we don't want you to have a headache from the neck. We don't want you to have low back pain. We don't want you to have any pain. Another gentleman, Dr. Michael Lee, he came up with a technique where we can actually release the muscles, the tendons, the nerves, alleviate the bad effects of friction in between those structures. We were designed to move. But the problem is we sold our bodies to comfort. Lots of people are in their office. They don't bother moving and going to see their colleague right next door in the other office. They basically pick up the phone and call them. I have some clients coming to my office, mommy and son, and if they have to wait 5 or 6 or 7 minutes and I pass by, I see them basically doing this thing. Everybody's texting. Everybody is surfing. That can't be good for our bodies. Our bodies are so geniusly designed that they actually adapt it to what we do, but also to what we don't do. Let's say I raise my arm. I have employed maybe 9 muscles to do this move, but there is a certain pattern of firing for those muscles. Because of the postural issues, we disturb this pattern, and using the techniques we're using at the moment, we managed to re-educate the muscle fibers to do a better job at that. I am fortunate enough to have a few athletes, some of the world ranking number ones coming to my office. We call them highly conditioned athletes. And I often tell them it's easier to get to be number one than to stay in that club number one. The issue is we're trying to fix the racing car while it's in the race. We're not trying to take it out into the garage and then fix it. That's the whole idea of this new approach. My idea, and actually our approach, if I'm talking to my fellow physicians, I would say we have to really let go of the classic way that we learned in medical schools of being so tunnel visioned, of only looking at somebody with a sprained ankle, with a torn ligament, and forgetting the rest of the body. Don't you think by the time this torn ligament got torn, a bunch of other structures have been stressed to the limit? That's basically where we're focused. I'd rather approach the problem with a non-invasive, less damaging, more effective way than the other alternatives ways, like medication, where at the end of the day, the problem doesn't get resolved, the patient develops side effects. Some people get nauseated, some people vomit, even vomit blood, or some get hooked on the medication. And at the end, what I used to do as an emergency physician is basically refer them out. I got rid of the patient. It was the only thing I thought the right thing to do. I referred them to the surgeon. And very few cases came back happy with that. I think we have to focus more on these new approaches. I wouldn't think of it as the alternative. Usually when I have patients coming to my office, they say, "Doc, you're number 7 on the list." I've been everywhere. So I became the alternative way of thinking. Nothing really worked, or they were scared of doing other procedures, so they came to me. I believe that the best way to frame what we do now with chiropractic, sports, and spine medicine, with neuromusculoskeletal medicine, call it whatever you're comfortable with, is to frame it as the new unconventional, least damaging, evidence-based approach. We have to embrace that. We have to keep our minds open. We have to try that as the first option. And if this doesn't work, then I have to think of the alternative. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.